I sat in the back pew, my hands folded, my breath measured, my pulse a slow drumbeat of anticipation. The air inside the church was thick with the scent of roses and candle wax, a cloying sweetness that settled in my throat like a lie. She was up there, wrapped in white, the very picture of innocence, though we both knew better. And beside her, my best friend, no, my former best friend, stood tall, his jaw set in feigned confidence, his hands clasped before him as if in prayer. I wanted to laugh. Or maybe I wanted to scream. The priest's voice droned on, a murmuring tide that swayed the guests into a reverent lull. But I wasn't listening to his words. I was waiting for the moment. Speak now or forever hold your peace. My fingers curled into my palms. I could feel the room holding its breath, the ritual silence before the plunge. And then I stood up. Rewind. I met her in autumn, when the world smelled of rain and the dying embers of summer. She had this way of tilting her head when she laughed, as if she were listening to the echo of her own joy. She was radiant then uncomplicated, or so I thought. And I was naive. I loved her with the kind of reckless devotion that made men fools. I worshipped the way she said my name, the way she reached for me in the dark, the way her lips curled around promises. And then there was him. We had been inseparable since childhood, bound by scraped knees and whispered secrets, by years of trust that felt unbreakable. He was my brother in all but blood. So when he smiled at her, when their laughter stretched just a little too long, I swallowed the unease like bitter medicine. Love, real love, was built on trust. Or so I told myself. The signs came in whispers. A shift in her touch, the way she pulled away just a second too soon. The late-night phone calls, cut off when I entered the room. The scent of unfamiliar cologne lingering in our sheets. Still, I refused to see it. Because acknowledging it meant admitting I had been a fool. But the truth is relentless. It waits, patient as a snake in the grass, until you step too close. And one night, I did. I wasn't supposed to be home early. The office had called for an emergency meeting, but I left before it began, my mind frayed with doubt. I wanted to see her, to drown myself in the illusion of us. Instead, I found them. The door was ajar. Candlelight flickered in our bedroom, the room where we had whispered dreams into each other's skin, where I had traced love letters onto her back with my fingertips. Their laughter, low and intimate, sent a jagged bolt of ice through my veins. And then her voice, breathless and unguarded. His name. I stepped inside, silent as the betrayal thickening the air. They didn't see me at first. Their limbs tangled, their bodies a mockery of everything I had thought sacred. And then she turned. Her eyes widened, her lips parted not in apology, but in surprise. As if I were the intruder. As if I were the one who had broken us. She cried. She begged. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. But lies taste bitter when you already know the truth. I looked at him, at the man who had been my brother. He couldn't even meet my gaze. Coward. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lash out. Instead, I walked away. Because I had a plan. And now, here we were. She in white, him in black, the church filled with flowers and smiling faces. They thought they had won. They thought I had disappeared into the void of my own grief, licking my wounds in the dark. But I was always patient. I stood, my voice steady, my heart a slow, deliberate drumbeat. Before you say I do, there's something you need to know. Silence. She turned, her face draining of color. He stiffened beside her, his hands clenching into fists. I took my time, letting the moment stretch, savoring the weight of anticipation. Then, I pulled out my phone. And pressed play. Her voice filled the church, ragged, breathless, drenched in pleasure. His name, over and over. Gasps rippled through the pews. Her mother clutched her chest. His father's face darkened with rage. The pastor's mouth fell open, horror warring with disbelief. And her? She stood frozen, a grotesque painting of shame and fury. I watched the betrayal bloom across the guests' faces, the slow unraveling of their perfect illusion. And then, I turned my gaze to him. You were my brother. His jaw tightened, his breath quickening. You were supposed to have my back, not my wife. I took a step closer, letting my voice drop to a whisper. You will never be free of this. The weight of my words settled over them like a shroud. And then, without another word, I turned and walked away. The news spread like wildfire. The wedding was called off. His family disowned him. She was left in ruins, her once perfect world reduced to whispers and pointed fingers. I should have felt triumphant. But as I stood outside, breathing in the cold air, I realized something. This wasn't victory. This was survival. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now.